Hey y'all, it's your Devo Duell here, and we are back for another amazing episode of what? Brew and Banter podcast. It is National Coming Out Day, but before we get into the banter, let's say a little hello to our co-hosts. All right, the beautiful and brilliant Miss Ebbs, what are you sipping on and what are you brewing on today?
Today I'm not brewing on much of nothing. I got sparkling LaCroix water. I don't know how you say it. I am recovering from the weekend, so I needed to get some H2O in my system.
I feel you. Recovery is for real. This weekend was wild. All right. Well, before we get into it, let's say a quick hello to the man, the myth, the legend. It's Dr. Dre. What you brewing on, bro?
Well, what I've got here is a little bit of a dark rum mixed with a pineapple orange mango concoction. It is quite delicious. It's very island, just like me, and it'll do the trick today.
Oh, we're gonna do the trick. Come through. Come on, island flavors. All right. So this is a really special episode for us. You know, we're touching on a topic that, you know, a lot of people deal with. Well, some people deal with. It's National Coming Out Day. But before we get into the banter, let's give a warm welcome to our very first guest on the pod ever. This is a near and dear friend of the pod. Give it up for my friend, the actor, writer, producer, poet, and legendary children of my house of Moon. Give it up for Jair Bula in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
What you got in your cup, Duel? You didn't tell us what you sipping on.
No, it's never too early or never too late for a little pineapple mango mimosa. You know, us gays, we like a good old brunch and mimosa moment. So I figured, what the heck?
Dre is not happy the fact that you biting on his drink. Like, you guys think this? You guys had a talk saying we're gonna do. Like, how did this happen?
I mean, you always trying to, jocking and stuff. I'm trying to tell you, you can't be doing that, trying to do the same fruits as me every time we, come on the show. You want to drink the same thing.
Hey, this is not the time for the gay on gay violence, okay? This is National Coming Out Day, all right, sir?
I guess it can be for everybody just for today if you want to have attitude about it.
We're gonna go to friends therapy. We're gonna go to friends therapy because you've been coming in hot lately. That's okay. We're gonna do this later. But anyway, don't be trying to shroud in front of company. You know I love him. But anyway, like I said, it's National Coming Out Day, so we're gonna talk about coming out, past, present, and how it's going to affect our futures, especially within the LGBTQIA plus community. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Ebbs, I see you got some questions ready to banter about.
I do. So I was reading the articles that you sent, Dre. Just people telling their stories of when they came out. And one I thought was interesting was the 15-year-old girl who she came out to her mother. Her mom was like, I already knew. So she was relieved because she had that ally. She had that person there, to support her, even though her mother's boyfriend was, clearly against it, was always giving her digs and, throwing digs at her. And so my question to y'all is, how important is it? If it's just one person, if it's not even a family member, but how important is it just for you to have someone, or when you did come out, you had someone to be there to support you? Because I can imagine how scary it is, just, especially the times we're all probably 80s, 90s babies, and things were a lot different back then in the 2000s and, late 90s. And it's like, just to have that one person who is going to walk with you through this new reality of walking in your truth. Like, how important is that for you guys? What do you think?
I personally think it's very important for me, just having that one person that was supportive of me made all of the difference. I was able to speak to that person out loud to get the ideas my own negative self-talk out of my mind and speak to them and ask them questions and have them reassure me that it was okay to be me. And having that one person in my corner was just all I really needed. I just needed just one person to hear me, rather than just rattling around these ideas in my mind all day long and never coming to any kind of conclusion. I just kept going back and forth. Yeah, it was okay. No, it's not okay. Yeah, I'm fine in my house, but when I get outside, it's totally different. Having to wear those different masks everywhere you go, oh my goodness, that was the worst part about not being able to be myself. I had to be 14 different people depending on where I was located. It just, having that one person that was supportive of me for being me was everything.
Make a big difference, especially building your confidence and navigating this whole new reality. It's a whole new world now. Once you go from one side to the other, and you're just being honest with yourself, and you're relieving yourself of that torture. You're trying to be something you're not. How about you, Duel? Is it having that person to support?
Well, it was hard because, like I said, growing up for me, I was kind of like my mom's only child. I was the only boy, and I grew up with four older sisters. And I dealt with a lot of bullying in school because I went to Catholic school, and I don't have to say too much about that. We all know how it is in Catholic school. But like I said, the only friend I had was my friend Arnisha. Shout out to Arnisha. Hey, girl, hey. But anyway, she was the only friend I had. I was like 5 years old. And I remember around between the ages of 5 and 8 was really, really hard because I didn't know I was different. I was a little flamboyant. I was a little different, very, very musical. Not that much has changed. But the thing is, I didn't really have to tell her. She knew. And she would always stand next to me, and she would always stand up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself. And those are the type of people that kind of motivate you to come into your truth and to really be comfortable with who you are. I know if I didn't have her, I don't know how I would have been able to manage going forward. And it's really important to have at least one person as an ally because unfortunately there are so many other cases out there of people within the LGBTQIA community who don't have that support system at home or in their community of peers. And unfortunately, we experience a lot of high risk suicide rates happening because of that, because people aren't comfortable being their, living in their truth or have that someone to tell, their truth to. So, yeah, everybody's story is different. And that's why we celebrate National Coming Out Days. We celebrate all those stories because coming out doesn't necessarily doesn't always have that one outcome. There's many different outcomes that can come up through it, but we celebrate it because it reminds us of who we are and how far we've come. So,
but you, Jair, what do you think as far as having just somebody walk with you in that time?
When I first came out was in high school, and initially I had a good support group, a good group of people around me that were also coming out of the closet, and we were all support for each other, and we were all part of a gay support group as well. But as time went on, some of those friendships became toxic, and so we just kind of went our own ways. And I had some other friends who remained as that support group, but, they started going through their own issues with shame and religious trauma. And so they kind of also just went away as well. And I found myself with no one, no one really there to be that ally or that voice to tell me that that it is okay or that it was okay for me to be me. And that became one of the major reasons why I ended up going back into the closet. And it was such a depressing time and full of anxiety and confusion. So yeah, definitely I would say that having a good support group when you're coming out is detrimental.
Mm. How, that's another thing, like what happens if you don't have no one? Um, just, I mean, you're here with us. And I also feel like, dealing with just depression, to not have no one to be there, like that's probably also contributes to a lot of suicides. It's just, you're alone, and and people are telling you this isn't right, and you feel like, well, maybe I should just X myself out of the situation. And it's, to just kill the noise of those people. It's hard, especially if it's your family. How is it for you guys when you had to come out to your family? Were they accepting, dismissive, or just turned away, just kind of just disowned? Because I've heard stories of people who just, their parents were like, I don't have a child, I don't have a daughter, you're no longer my son, don't ever come around anymore. And that's, your family's the only thing you have.
I mean, for me, it didn't. I don't think I really had to come out to the family. They were just like, "Yeah, we already knew. We was waiting for you to let us know, basically." So they were fine with it. I think that they noticed that after I made a conscious decision to say it out loud, they were like, "Okay, he's happier now. He's being himself. He's more rambunctious or whatever it is." But yeah, they already knew. Nobody cared. And that was the thing. And that's the first thing they said. Nobody cares. I don't even know why you had to sit here and come say it out loud. Nobody cares. I was like, well, damn.
That was a story of my friend, who I known since fourth, third grade. She sat me down, like she called me, was really serious, and she, let me know that she was a lesbian. And I was like, okay. I already knew. I was waiting for you to figure it out, because she'd gotten married, got a divorce. It was hard for her to tell her dad, because her dad was very not supportive. Her mom, it took a while to warm up. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I think a lot of the religion aspect of it, but her mom was still accepting. But I think it was her father, and like her father's side, they were like, no, it's a curse. We're going to pray for you. And I'm just like, this is who you are. And I saw a different, like I saw, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, what you do in your bedroom is what you do in your bedroom. What does that got to do with the price of tea in China for me? Are we going to the mall today or what? Like, what are we going to do? I'm not, because she was, I think, concerned she would lose a friend. And I'm, why? I would never, disown a friend, anybody who's being truthful to themselves. Like whoever she chooses to be in a relationship with has no effect. It's not going to hurt me. As long as you're not physically hurting me, I'm not going to stop being your friend over it. But, she did lose a lot of family members who were just, no, and it's sad. How about for you? Or Jair, who wants to chime in? What was your guys' experience like?
Jair, you're our guest.
Girl. Yeah, you gotta go first.
When my family found out, it was because my sister heard me talking on the phone about some guy that I had a crush on, and
You like men? Started crying and bawling and threw herself on the floor, like very telenovela. And she called my mom immediately, crying. It was very traumatic. I can laugh about it now, but it was very, very traumatic for me. Taking them a while, a long time for them to feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. A long journey.
Yeah.
So your
Love
sister,
to the point where it is toxic. That's
your sister's like, I'm gonna steal your thunder. I'm gonna out you. I'm gonna tell mom. And what about you, Joelle?
I think for me, like I said, like I kind of knew around like 13, 14, I knew I was, at that point, I really knew I was different. And I had started seeing someone around 15. And it was about 2 years after me seeing that person. We were very on again, off again during high school, very Ross and Rachel's. It was the late 90s. But I understood that, at some point, I was gonna have to come out to my mom because I was felt like, between my both my parents are old school, so she would be like, it was the lesser two evils at that time. I was like, let me just tell her first, and then I'm gonna tell him at some later date. So I remember we at that time we were seeing each other a lot, and we were going on dates and stuff like that. And I remember it was like 2004, 2005, like that winter, and I wanted to go see Dreamgirls with my boyfriend at the time, and I don't know. I had put on my clothes and everything, so I was ready to go to this movie, and he was on his way to pick me up, and I told my mom, "Hey, I'm going with so and so to the movies to see Dreamgirls. I'll be back later," and she was just like real healthy, and I could tell she was in the kitchen and she was like washing dishes. It was just so dramatic. It was a very dramatic moment. So I was like, well, what's going on with you? Like, why are you acting like this? We're just going to the movies. And she was like, act, like moms do, ask a million questions. And it just kind of got under my skin. So like, I just was like, F it. I'm going to say what it is. Because this is like the elephant is in the room and nobody's acknowledging it. So I was like, Mom, you know what? This is ridiculous. I can't. I just can't. You know what? Let's just say it. I'm gay, all right? I'm gay. He's my boyfriend. We're going on a date. I like it was very like it was a scene. It was very much like that. And I can remember my mom was like washing dishes. And it was like if you can get a POV of her like through the window of her facial reaction and me in the background, it was very bad. So she had her little Meryl Streep moment. She was like she just stopped washing dishes. She dropped the dish. It was very bad. And, and we had a moment. And I ended up leaving. I was like, I'm still going to go on my dates. We'll talk about this later. So that was about 17. It took her about 5 years. So this is 5 years later. I am graduating college. The 17, I was about to graduate from high school. But this is a point like 5 years later where I was dating someone else who she really liked. And she actually surprised me. And I remember this was like my 22nd or 23rd birthday. And I remember she went up and made a speech and she's like, I love my son and whoever he loves is who he loves. And I'm always proud of him and da 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 da. And I'm over here sobbing. And like my boyfriend is there. It's the whole thing. So sometimes when it comes to coming out, the first time coming out may not always be the reaction you want it to be, but there's a silver lining. Sometimes it takes some people a while to adjust. And sometimes, like I said, it's not always what people expect it's going to be. Your story is unique to you and it makes you who you are. But at the same time, don't give up on the people in your life that sometimes they just need time to process. I know with my dad, it was different. I had to come out twice because he forgot. And
How do you forget?
I was like, man, my dad is of a different generation, so he just forgot. I came out to him once, and he was like, "Oh, I think he's thinking about other things." So because my dad's, like I said, old school, and sometimes old school mentalities, they're just used to certain things being a certain way. Mm-hmm. So I remember the second time I came out to him was funny. I was in another relationship and we had gotten engaged. And at that time, when you get engaged, you're like, okay, what do I need to do? Shit, I need to come out again. Shit, who doesn't know? I'm getting married next year. So I remember talking to my dad and I had to sit down with him because I was nervous. And because you worry about being disowned and ostracized from your family. A lot of us worry about that. And he actually surprised me. And sometimes, again, do not basically overlook people's reactions. Don't assume that someone's going to react a certain way because they could surprise you. My dad definitely surprised me in the sense where I came back from I had been engaged for like literally 2 or 3 weeks. I flew back to LA and I was getting ready to move out. I was like getting my shit together because I was like, I'm moving on to a new chapter. So I sat my dad down. I'm sitting here with this big ass engagement ring on. And I'm like, hey, so I have something to tell you. I don't know if you know already. I thought we covered this about a few years ago, but let's recap. So I'm getting married. to so and so. You've met them, yes. So I'm getting married, and I would really like you to be there. I don't want to do this without you. But this is who I am, and I hope that you can understand that and respect. And if you don't, I get it. But I felt like we're at a point in our relationship where I'm an adult and I can live my own life, but I want you to be a part of that life. I don't want you outside of that life. So he's like, well, it is what it is. That's the thing with today with y'all, it is what it is. I still love you. You're my son. I love you. I'm gonna be there for you. If you want me there, I'll be there. This ain't nothing new. People been doing this all the time. And even though his reaction was kind of like, okay, it's just a fact of support. And I think for a lot of us, we just need to know that our relationship, like we're not changing. We're just bringing you into who we are. And I know, of course, it was very much a fences moment. It was like tears streaming down. We had a little hug, like very much that. But sometimes, you have to understand when you come out to your parents and family members, they're of a different generation. They came around a time when it was hard for queer people to be out. And sometimes they're afraid of you, afraid, not of you, but afraid of what society may think and the perceptions. I know that was from my mom. My mom mentioned that like years later that her biggest fear was what society would think and how society would treat me coming out as an openly queer man of color. Yeah, sometimes we just got to be patient with people and allow time to kind of like bring them around. So yeah.
Whose reaction were you more afraid of, your mom's or your dad's?
I think my dad, because my dad at the same time, growing up, sometimes parents say certain things and certain words that aren't, cool now, and they don't realize it until it's someone in their family. And I think that's another thing about coming out. It's like you don't know until it's someone you love who is within your family, who is going through that process of coming into their truth. So we can't necessarily judge because nowadays it's in everyone's family. You at least have one person that identifies with the community. So I think it's a lot easier now to come out than it was maybe 10, 12, 10, 15, 20 years ago. We have resources. We have media as influence. We have so many things and resources that help people come out, So, yeah.
Speaking of media, do you think it's now that you're seeing more representation in films and TVs, do you think that like would have made a difference if, let's say, you were growing up and you were able to see someone who was like you and identify with them, and maybe kind of, I don't know, like I feel like sometimes when you see representation, you're not alone.
Yes.
And that there is a space for you. And your voices are being heard on a national stage. Do you think that? I mean, I think there needs to be way more representation. I know that we're just kind of breaking on the ice of it, but how do you guys feel like as far as representation now that we're seeing in films, we're seeing, in a lot of movies, there is someone who is gay or part of the LGBTQIA community. And we're seeing them now, whereas before it was like, for example, with Ellen, how she just got completely kicked out of Hollywood. I mean, this was in the 90s. But now, like, how do you guys feel? Like, do you think there needs to be more? I mean, I think there needs to be a lot more. I think there needs to be a lot more inclusivity. But how do you guys think about that?
Well, y'all can take.
Personally, I feel like the representation has increased, tenfold over the last 2 decades or so. I feel like it's better now than it was before because there was technically representation back in the day, but it was, the stereotypical gay, the super extra flamboyant, multiple color wearing, either a white guy or a black guy. Usually it was a white guy, and then eventually, things like Fresh Prince came out, and there was a black guy on there or on Family Man, things like that. But now you see the LGBTQIA plus community represented in what society has always deemed normal life, married couples with kids, regular people having jobs. It's just not as stereotypical as it used to be. So I like where we're headed. I think the more that we're represented or the more often that we're seen, the easier it will be for society to digest us. I know that sounds like terrible that society should have to digest us, but at the same time, it is what it is. I think that where we are right now is okay, but like Eb said, we could do a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. And they could put me in a movie and I'll probably be the best one in the movie if you think about it.
I
If
agree.
they need some representation, some extra additional representation, just ask me and I'll be able to go and record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, put him in there. He's that representation. I mean, he's island, light skinned, part of the LGBTQA plus
Awesome.
community, IQ,
Awesome.
I plus community. We got them all. He got three. He's knocking all three right now.
Who you hating on right now?
I mean, we're gonna get you some classes first. You can't just show up and be pretty. You know that. Me and Jair, we
How it works?
act. We go to school for this. So I mean, if you try to, if you try to learn,
Natural. I don't need school. I'm natural.
I'm trying to figure out how come you didn't recognize this, Noir. She said it so clearly. I'm a natural.
you never
And
have it. I'm just saying we need to refine it. We need to refine it. You can't just step on the spot and expect just because you're pretty and you light skinned, you're gonna show up and get the part. I'm just saying it's work.
representation. I don't need no
You
requirement.
probably right before me. I'll tell you that.
We need to get your credits up, baby. We need to get your credits.
I
If
know.
right now, it would be going clack, clack.
Yes,
The,
ma'am.
yeah, oh,
That's the part coming out when the reading. They got to learn how to read too. If you're gonna be a part of the community, you got to learn how to read.
oh,
We're pros at reading. Reading is love. You know that reading is love.
You got to read it. Yep.
Wait, I have a question. I'm sorry. I was just wondering, like, okay, so we talked about having support. We talked about not having support. We talked about it not being socially accepted. But what if the government is now telling you that you can't be who you are? I feel like that is exactly is what's happening in a number of countries over in Africa. 31, I believe, countries have laws against homosexuality, against homosexual acts, or against just being homosexual can get you prison time from 10 years to life. And I don't even know what like metrics they use to figure out whether or not you're gay. I don't know if it's kind of like a witch hunt. Somebody goes to the police and says that guy is gay. I saw somebody else's situation in their mouth and they must be gay. That's what it is. They could have been having a snake bite. They don't know what's going on in Africa. There's a lot of animals over there, so they don't know if they're really gay. Let's start with that.
Right.
But it's a problem, and the reason why I thought of the question is because my sister-in-law has created an organization called outinafrica.org, and Africa fell with a K because that's how she liked it. And she really created the organization because she is from Kenya, and she was forcefully pushed out of her own country because she is a lesbian. She was just forced directly out of the country. They said, you have to get out of here. She was in the newspaper and everything, outed for the whole country to see. And she came over here to America as a refugee and just went back there for the first time this year, actually, over the summer. She went back this year. She became an American citizen and went back this year. Was able to go back to her country. Even though they still have those laws, she just kind of went back because that's where she's from. But she wanted to share the way that America kind of looks at the community at this time. And that's what she did. She decided to start the Out in Africa organization. And what she does with it is basically shares information about how the rest of the world is living, but living in the community, and showing Africa that it can be done. It's okay. Go ahead and let yourself be free. It's just fine. In addition to doing that, she, I don't know if you guys know, but in Africa or in some countries in Africa and then some other third world countries, they do like period shaming, right? So they had a situation where one of the leaders in the community was wearing an all white suit, and she started her period while she was. It's like a senator. I think she's a senator there in Canada. And she started her period and she bled through her suit, and the rest of the cabinet just shamed the hell out of her, and she left. Right? But she decided that she was not going to be shamed by something that was natural. She came back with that same suit on the next day and stood there and decided she was going to sit there and let them know this is what y'all. This is what happens when you don't get me pregnant, basically. So this is what's going to happen. That's what we're going to do. So Allen Africa also provides sanitary napkins for kids who can't afford them. And I mean, if they can't afford them, they are ashamed to go to school because they don't want to have the option. So we send those sanitary napkins over there so they can have those so they can continue their education. So they're trying to do a lot with that, in addition to helping with legislation against those laws that are already in place for punishing the community just for being a part of the community. I mean, how would you react if you were living in a place where the government said, you can't be you. We don't want you here. Pack your things and go.
Or just kill you, or jail you. Yeah, or jail you just for being, not like the norm. That's a good. I mean, y'all take it away. I gotta digest that. I mean,
It is so incredibly stressful and traumatic to live that kind of life where you constantly have to be watching your back and watching what you say and do and being careful that people don't see you with your partner or doing anything quote unquote gay. And this is why it's so important to have representation in the media, because representation helps us normalize being queer. And the more that people see it, the more it changes their perspectives. They begin to see it as something that's normal and not something that's punishable by death or prison. So it is so important for those of us who live in this country that we do have that freedom to continue to fight for that freedom to be visible and to be represented, because there are those that are in these other countries that will see us at some point or can see us and know that they are not alone, know that they too can have this and should have this freedom, and hopefully will bring about a change in the world.
that's.
That's good. I like that.
Mm-hmm. I don't. I mean, I just can't. It's just we're in 2024, about to be 2025, and it's asinine that you have countries who are wanting to lynch people because their sexual orientation. Like, what is it? To me, it's always been like, why are we putting? Why are we? We're all God's children. We're all brought here to love. And what effect does it have on the next person who I love? It doesn't. It doesn't. And I think when the government steps in, and even in our government, like we look at them trying to strip rights now, trying to do a national ban of same-sex marriages. And it's like, how are we taking rights? How is it okay to have one sect of people have these rights and then another sect of people, you want to restrict their rights? And in these countries in Africa, it's like, how archaic are you now if you want to be taken serious on a national stage, with other countries, you're wanting to kick people out of their own country because of their sexual orientation? That don't make any sense. And for what? It's like you're persecuting people just because they don't think or love the same person, the same sex that you love. Like, what sense does that make? And I don't know. I don't know what anybody could do. I mean, I think it's good that your sister-in-law left so she could be, herself. Because I can't imagine what it would be like to have to stifle yourself or not live in your truth because you're afraid that you may say something and your friend may out you to the government, or you might break up with somebody who they have wronged you and they out you to the government. It's a weapon. It's a weapon being used against you. I can't. I don't know. I just feel like the world's going to hell in a handbasket.
I think it really comes down to, I think there's a fear of what's of different. People have that, especially when it comes to homosexuality or with any member of the LGBTQIA community. It's a fear of of something that's different, fear of change, and the powers that be or those who are considered to be in power, they're banning homosexuality or anybody living their truth in these spaces because, like I said, they feel like it's all about control. Because they're afraid that if more people are coming out, then that will change the dynamic of how things used to be as far as, the man and women procreation type of thing. But people don't understand that does not stop heterosexual people from doing what they do, which is have that if that's what they want. But people who choose a different way, that does not infringe upon your rights at all. It really comes down to fear and control. And until we acknowledge that is the underlying issue, we will continue to be faced with this fight to protect our rights. Nobody wants to have the conversation as to why it is the way it is. And I remember I wrote an essay like the essay right way before we had the Marriage Equality Act. I remember back in high school, I had a debate over this because at that time I was going through my whole thing. Like I said, I was coming out, and it was important for me to understand. We went through Bible verses. I did a lot of research, but it really came down to fear and control, and telling people what they can and cannot do because you feel like in some way insecure or inferior to your way of life by allowing these people to live their truth. People who are of the LGBTQIA community aren't a threat to those who are supposed to be allies. That's not a threat. That's not going to stop the way of procreation. It's not going to do anything of that. And once we get that out of our heads, I think we'll be able to make progress. Because at the end of the day, what happens with someone in their privacy of their house, that has to do with them. The government should not be allowed that right to dictate how someone should live. That's why, again, strength is in numbers. Why we have coming out day is because it reminds those who are not of the community, who are not allies, that we are a community and we come in many different forms. We're not just a stereotypical gay you saw in the 70s, 80s, and 90s on television. We've evolved. A lot of us are married. A lot of us pay taxes. A lot of us have families. We not only work in entertainment and media, we also work in many different sectors in business and finance and education. We have involved. Government. In your government, there's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. We remember what was happening under those stalls at the airport with them those governors. A lot of them are closeted and they're not ready to come out because they're afraid of how other people will perceive them. But do not demonize us for having the bravery to say this is who we are, because we come in different forms. We're in many different sectors. And I feel like if there's strength in numbers, I know we don't always see eye to eye within each letter of the community. That's a whole nother story. But we do need to come together, especially in this time, during this election year, when they are threatening to take away our protections. We need to come together and vote and focus on how do we keep us going. So we can make it to another coming out day. Every year is a fight. Every few years our protections are being threatened. And we need to think about up here, what is the underlying issue? Fear and control. Period.
And fear breeds hate. But like you said, the root of it is the fear.
Yeah.
The fear and somebody not being like you. And it's like, you can fear you want to. It's not going to go away.
It's not.
No. There's been, from the beginning of times, same-sex relationships and heterosexual and opposite sex. Well, it's just the beginning of time. Like you said, you made a good point. In the Bible, it's in the Bible.
Exactly.
It's I feel like it's man who have posed that this is wrong because now you're not going to procreate, or I'm going to try to control who you. It's here. It's in our DNA. In school, when I was going to school for psychology, there was always this debate: is it a gene? It's just who you are. Like it's nothing that is like you have people who are like, if you're around someone who's of the LGBTQIA plus community and you're teaching my kid in school, then they're going to be that way. No, baby, it's something you're born with. You either, and for most, it's something I what we were told, taught. It's there. We have when your body's going in and as a baby and you're creating and things are happening. You're assigned at that point who you're gonna like, who you're gonna attract. And some people are, that's just innately, it's not genetics. It's not like people are like, oh, maybe it's just how we are made. And that is how, and if we are made that way, God makes us, then that is what God wanted. And I just think that people are trying to make it so, like political and who are against it. And it's like, you can be against it all you want to. You're not going anywhere.
Exactly. We're not going anywhere, and you're right. This has been happening for centuries. But the thing is, it all comes down to education. Education starts sometimes at home, and that's a problem because a lot of people we're in a modern age now where not only people are coming out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, but there's also been a lot of issues within the trans community and non-binary community about they're going through a renaissance now of people really coming out about gender identity and things of that nature. It starts with at home. Parents have to be a little bit more hands on with educating their kids that just because people are different does not mean a way to, there's not that does not give you to right to bully, to demonize, to humiliate, to devalue people because they are different. Because we need to take that education that started at home, move it into the schools, because we don't talk about sex education. We only talk about it from a heterosexual point of view. But all of the kids in that time, they're going through it. They're feeling the feelings at that time. It all comes down to education. You can't just expect the government can control it, but it starts with us passing the word along, educating kids about it's okay to be different. Whatever feelings you have, it's natural. Whoever you love is natural. Whatever you decide to identify as is natural. Because that's how the world is starting to shape up now. People are tired of being oppressed and having to live in the shadows. And it's time for us to really start learning to have tolerance, to have acceptance. But that education starts at home. We can't expect our teachers to do it. We can implement it into schools, but we have to start it with at an early age so that these kids grow up in spaces where they are loved, they are supported, they are accepted for however they identify. So I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, the government, that's great. We could only do so much with the government when it comes to voting and protesting and getting out in the streets in numbers. But a lot of it has to come from at home education with parents talking to children. That's why there needs to be more books and movies and things like influential tools that you can use so that families can be able to tackle those subjects in a way that allows the kid to feel supported, but also to help educate the parents who may not be fully aware of what that looks like, especially raising a child in this time who does identify as gay, bi, trans, lesbian, asexual is another thing. There's so many different factors because it's not just about coming out as gay. There's many different letters in that alphabet. So, that's why for me, it was great circling back to what we were talking about before just for a minute, having those media influences. Like I said, I didn't see a lot of representation, especially for queer people of color, until, I want to say maybe the early 2000s. Like I started seeing they had a queer character on Ugly Betty that he was like one of the first people to do an on camera kiss. I know you remember
Yeah.
it, Talia. You remember that. But Justin, the character, America Ferrera's character, her nephew was queer. and they were tackling it. And I remember that episode they ended where him and his guy crush ended up having the first on air camera, even kiss on camera, and that's a big thing, you know. And on top, I think it was another thing called Noah's Ark. For me, I don't know, Dre, if you watch Noah's Ark, but for me, you know, seeing someone like myself, black, queer, and unapologetic, that means a lot to us. But we can't just rely on media to teach us about who we are. They just need to start. That starts the conversation, but the conversation has to continue so that we can be able to, you know, affect change, social change. Media is only going to do so much. Government is only going to do so much. But we need to have the conversations. We have to, or else we're going to be fighting this every 4 years.
Yeah. So my
There's
question
resources out there.
before we wrap up, to those now out there who are struggling to come out, what would you say to them?
The first thing that came to my mind was nobody cares anymore. Just do it.
That might be the best answer. Like, just do it. Nobody cares. And if so, okay, you know, we're not your people.
Stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking and just be you, because, like I said, the weight is just lifted. You don't have to pretend to be somebody you're not. Just do it. You'll feel so much better. You really will. Unless you're in one of those crazy places that hates everybody. I don't know where that's at, but surely there's somewhere that hates everybody. Just move to the next place and then do it. It's fine. You'll be safe. You'll be all right.
What would you say to people, to someone coming out or is in the process but is afraid to, Jay?
I would definitely encourage safety first, right? Because there are places that you can't come out. And if you know that you have an abusive parent or sibling and coming out can put you in physical harm's way, then I would say be careful. Sometimes coming out to oneself can be just as powerful before you come out to other people. Because and it's been my experience, like I've come out, like I said, twice, and wasn't until I really started to accept myself and really love myself and accept it for myself that it started to make a difference. And because like Dre said, everybody knew, nobody cares, you know, for the most part. Well, some people did, but it made the difference started to happen in me once I started to accept and love myself. And for that, other people don't need to know about. So I would say first, start with yourself, come out to yourself first, accept yourself first fully. And it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. Love yourself for everything that God made you to be. Know that you're not alone. And come out when it's safe. Find that support group. We're talking about allies. Find your allies that you can come out to first, and build that support group. Build that internal connection with you, with who you are in your essence, so that when the world comes at you, because they will come at you, you're so strong in yourself that it won't deter you from being who you need to be and doing what you need to do in this world. So yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. That is
So well spoken.
Yes.
I didn't say none of those words. You sounded good.
You sound so good.
You better use your communication skills, acting and communication skills. Very interview. I love it.
Oh my God. Well spoken, like well put together with that message. It's like you got to be comfortable with yourself, and that's true. That's true. Because you can come out to people, to your family, but if you're not accepting of yourself, you're gonna pick up on them not accepting you, and it's gonna make it a lot. That makes
and it creates more problems for yourself internally. This is why I feel like a lot of people in the LGBT community, that's why we become addicted to having sex with strangers or doing drugs or doing these things to fill this emptiness and this hole that we carry inside. And it's because it's that lack of love, that lack of connection with our higher self, with our divine, with our essence. Like, you know, God created us to be this way. And if you're denying yourself for who you are, you're denying God. If you're a God believer, or the universe, or the divine creator, whatever you want to call it, you're denying you. You know, even though it's just a part of who we are, but it is a major expression of who we are. And if we're denying that, then we're just living in the darkness and we become weak. So yeah. Like to quote Mother Rue, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
Yeah, you love somebody else.
Yeah. What would you say, Joelle?
I always tell my younger self that you're not alone. Like you said, you're not alone. A lot of us have a tendency to feel isolated. But the great thing is you have people, find your tribe. There are other people like you out there. You have to find there are resources and spaces like there's a lot of LGBT centers that you can go to, especially for young queer children who don't feel like they belong. There are spaces where they have social groups where you can meet other people of your age who are going through the same thing and you find your tribe. Because that's like, for instance, I'm watching a show all about that called Heartstopper, and they basically journey through what is it like to come out today, and it's about a group of kids in high school in like Great Britain, and I'm addicted to it because, like I said, kids now have a lot more advantage. There are communities. They have a lot more people coming out. They have a lot more, visual people in the media and entertainment. So it's like they're very more advantaged. But at the same time, it's like, remember, you're not by yourself. If there are other people in your community, you just got to find them. And it may take a minute to find them. But once you do, hold on to those people because they're going to give you that courage to keep thriving. So you're not alone. Whatever you have to do, if you have to journal, you know, journal, do whatever is good for you. Self-care is important. And just also know you don't have to come out right now. Everybody comes out in their own time. Like I said, they have people who come out at different ages, but you have to be ready. And you have to know what it is. And also educate yourself. Education is very key. So that's what I would say.
You guys made some great points. As an ally, I would just say to someone who is in the midst or trying to come out, you have one life to live and you only get one shot at this. And it would be a disservice to yourself and to the universe to not live in your truth, because you have so much to offer. You have so much to, for people to experience you. And don't dim your light because the fear of other people's judgments. It's just when it's time, when you're ready, whether you are a teen, adolescent, adult, ask yourself the question: for the remainder of my life, do I want to live fully and wholly of who I am, or do I want to chip away at myself or dim myself and make myself a lot smaller on the inside and just exist? Like that's what I would say. Just please, the world needs you to come out. The world needs you to live in your truth, because there might be someone that who you come out to, who's probably trying to come out themselves. And you would never know. And so and if they don't accept you, they're not your people. Like Joelle said, find your tribe. You're going to be okay. The universe, God has, and you're going to be okay. And the moment you step into your light and just share that light with the rest of us, we will be forever thankful and grateful for that. Because, like you said, strength in numbers. And on that note, I'm not trying to get emotional here, so I'm going to end it.
Me too.
People struggle, and it's just really sad when you think of it. So
love you, allies. We appreciate you. Just give it up for the allies. We all need allies. We see you. We see you for seeing us. We see you for seeing us.
Of course, we're all in this thing. We're all in this experiment of life, and it's just the more we can just be there to support each other, regardless of anything. I think it makes us better as humans. So, but on that note, we are gonna say goodbye on this day of coming out, and thank you, Jair, for joining us, and I hope you come back again. We need
yes.
like,
It's better
come
on the
back.
computer than on the phone. So
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, so you guys come follow us on our socials. That's Brew and Banter on podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We even got a TikTok. And I just want to thank everybody and my hosts for another great Brew and Banter. And on that note, we are out of here.
The National Coming Out Day, y'all. Wave your red rainbow flag. Thank you.